Good evening, and welcome to the History and Genealogy Virtual Classroom. Today is Thursday, December 17th, and the time is 6:33. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mike Bridwell, and I will be moderating this Zoom session. Today's class, Exploring the Ancestry Library Edition Database, will be taught by Jacob Eubanks. This class will be recorded and made available on the St. Louis County Library website and on the library's YouTube channel. If you are viewing this Zoom webinar live, you are encouraged to type questions using Zoom's Q&A feature. The instructor will answer questions at the end of this session. I have put the link to the website in the chat, and I will now turn this over to Jake, and we will begin the class.
All right, thank you, Mike. So this evening's program is Exploring the Ancestry Library Edition Database. It's going to be a demo program, so we're going to switch over here to the library's website and move forward from there. Give me just a moment to make that switch. Here we are. This is the St. Louis County Library's website. It's slcl.org. This is where most of our online focus is. You'll find information about the History and Genealogy Department under the Research tab, which is at the center of the screen. We'll go ahead and click into History and Genealogy here. This is the History and Genealogy page on our website. You'll see a number of different things, including the classes, including this evening's class right here. There are a couple links for St. Louis research and for online research. The online research works the same as this link over here on the left-hand side for online genealogy resources. We're going to go ahead and go into online genealogy resources, which is an A to Z list of history and genealogy related websites and databases that we've put together for you. And one of those, of course, is the Ancestry Library Edition Database. So I'm going to scroll down this and we're going to go to Ancestry Library Edition. Now, Ancestry has three different versions of their product. There is the basic Ancestry, which is US records that any individual can purchase for sale. They also have an international edition, which is available for sale. Both of those editions allow you to create your own family trees, and you can link it up to your DNA. The library edition is a little different. It has all of the resources that are found in the US and the international edition, and you can search for family trees, but you yourself cannot create a family tree in Ancestry Library Edition. Currently, Ancestry Library Edition is being offered remotely. Usually you have to be on site, but during the pandemic, they've been offering it as a free source for us to share with you remotely. So this is the Ancestry homepage. Now, Ancestry doesn't just own this product. They also own the Fold3 and newspaper.com products. So you'll see up here at the top of the screen where they are advertising 262 million obituaries from newspapers.com. Now in Ancestry, that's going to be indexed entries. You actually have to go to the newspapers.com database to view those. That's a regular question we get, especially since they've got that pronounced advertising right there at the top of the screen. Now Ancestry has a lot of different things going on. And so you can get to things different ways. If we're looking at the home page and we scroll down, you'll see some very quick links here for searching the census, searching vitals, searching military, and searching immigration. And these are very broad areas. Census is, in this case, the US federal census is what they're talking about, but there are many other censuses in Ancestry. State censuses, European censuses. I was seeing Native American censuses that they've added recently. So it's not just the US federal census, but that's what that link is specifically for. Here we see links for searching vital records. Now, a lot of times vital records are closed sources that you have to obtain from the different states. Sometimes vital records in Ancestry are referring to church records, such as church baptisms, marriages, and burials. It just depends how they've sorted it out. But I believe when you click that, that's some of the things that come up. Different military records, and then of course the immigration records are referring to passenger lists, but also naturalizations. You'll note there's another quick link section down here at the bottom. There's a nice quick link to get to the public member trees, and I'll show you another way to get to those as well. We have quick links for birth, marriages, and deaths, city directories, school directories, church histories, just a lot of different stuff. And then over here on the right, you'll see each individual US federal census has a link. Now, history and genealogy does offer a census-specific class. We have a recorded version on our website. So if you're interested in census research, I highly recommend either check out our recording or catch our next Zoom program where we teach the census. I'll hit on it a little bit tonight, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time since we already do that in another course. If we go to the very top of our screen, the primary thing on the homepage that I use as a genealogy librarian is the search key. Now, the search key provides us with a bunch of different drop-down options, which we've seen in other places on the page, but it's nice and neat right here for me to click as soon as I get into the Ancestry database. You'll note that we do have a link for census and voter lists, birth, marriage, and death, migration, immigration and travel, and then the card catalog. And we'll come back to each of these. We're going to start with the census and voter lists and move on from there. So I'm clicking into census and voter lists. Now, this is their search feature that you will see. It'll tweak from type of record to type of record that you're looking in. But for the most part, this is what you're going to see. With Ancestry, it's going to search for first and middle and last name. You'll usually have a birth, year, and location. A lot of times you'll have the lived-in category, and that's something that I like to emphasize for people that are doing research here. The lived-in category is probably the most useful of any of these location options. If somebody was born here in St. Louis and moved to Kansas City, and you're researching them during the years that they're in Kansas City, and you're typing in the location of their birth for St. Louis, you're probably not going to get accurate results doing that. You're better off searching their birth year and where they lived. So you would search for Jackson County or Johnson County, Kansas, or wherever they may be in the Kansas City area. You will note that there are options for family members, and sometimes that can be a useful tool, but don't fill in every blank when you do searches in Ancestry. We need to be somewhat vague and at the same time be somewhat specific, and there are a lot of tricks to that as you do this. Also know what Ancestry has done is they take records and they do transcriptions. Now, these records are handwritten oftentimes. They're sometimes in very bad script, and the transcribers don't have an easy time of making it very searchable. You can't make a handwritten scroll searchable with a computer. You have to type something in and transcribe it. And so you'll get examples of individuals whose names appear in Ancestry, but they're different on every single record. I have an ancestor whose last name is Crumrine, C-R-U-M-R-I-N-E. Well, it's a big C and a lot of tiny little letters when you write it out. And so it gets recorded as Grumrine, Crumrine, Crummins, Crumlee, Crummin, anything you can imagine, Cummings. And so when I do searches in Ancestry, sometimes I have to look at the neighbors. I have to look at people that might be in the family and try to assemble their first names and search that way because the surname gets messed up so often. So there's tricks there. If you're searching and you know a sibling and they're alive at the time in the census, you might want to search for their name as well. There's a keyword option, and sometimes that can be useful if you know what their profession was. I had an ancestor on a collateral line who was a tailor. And so when I searched for him, his name is very common. It's James McGinley. But when I search for him, I almost always put in the keyword tailor because knowing that profession can be helpful, especially since he was that basically his entire life. You'll note that there is a gender selector here in the census, and that can often be very useful when you're doing searches here. Since I mentioned him, I'm going to go ahead and search for my Crumrine, and I'm going to search in Douglas County, Kansas. Note when I type things in, Ancestry tries to autofill it for me. So as I started to type Douglas, it started to provide me with options. The further along you get in what you type, the easier it'll be to pull things up. So here's Douglas County, Kansas, which is where he lived for much of his adult life. And we're going to do a search for him here. I'm going to go ahead and add his birth year just to put it in there. Now what I'm doing right now is I am searching every census record Ancestry has to offer. Right off the bat, you'll note the 1900 US Census. As I said, Crumrine, it appears as Crummins right there. I'm not searching a particular census. I'm just searching everything in the catalog that's out there that's a census record. Not necessarily the best way to search Ancestry, but I'm doing it that way to kind of illustrate my point of what all's out there. Here we got the 1900 census. In Kansas, they had what were called territorial or state censuses, and they happened every 5 years within the federal census. So there's a 1865, 1875, 85, 95, etc. So here we're pulling from those censuses right here. Here's 1905, here's 1895. So there's those. There's also non-population schedules, such as the agricultural census. There was the DDD, which mainly documented disabilities, people who were in mental institutions, and that occurred, I want to say that was in 1880. There were slave schedules. So some of those, but not all of them, are in Ancestry. Here again, we see him in 1870 in the United States Federal Census. Here he is in 1885 in the Kansas Census. Now, because I did this search as broad as I did, we're going to start getting some weird stuff in here too. Here, I don't know who this is. You can see that the birth is in Maryland. Residence in 1850 is in Carroll County, Maryland. This one is a cousin in Monroe, Harrison County, Ohio. So we're getting a lot of weird hits. Now, one thing you can do is you could do a general search like this, and then you can begin narrowing. You can narrow using the filters that they provide over here on the left-hand side, and we could select a particular year and narrow that way. Another thing you can do is you can use their filters that they provide here for your individual search, such as we can say that it needs to be exact, or exact and similar, or sounds like and similar to Henry. Similar we could do here, we could do the exact, and similar for Crumrine. Now obviously we wouldn't want to do that with this surname because there's too many possible hits, but Henry we might want to. Problem with that is that would eliminate any H's where he's been recorded by his initials. You can do the same thing with the lived in category. You can narrow it down to the county, to the adjacent counties, to the state. And sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it gets so narrow or it doesn't pick up on a county that's neighboring. It's not perfect. But those are options that you can use for filtering. Now let me go back here. From this original census and voters list page, we can also narrow by category. So we could specify I want to search in the US federal or the UK census collection, or I can go to specific years. I can also go to featured data collections, note, that are found in the card catalog. It's going to take it a second to load here. Okay. And you can see all the different censuses that appear in the card catalog. There's 456 possible hits. So that's probably not the best way to do it. Now, if I'm searching in the US Federal Census, what I actually do is I use this narrow by category to US Federal Census collection. And then I go down here to the very bottom where it shows me the included data collections. And then I'll go in and specify which I want to look at. Now note the slave schedules, note veteran schedules. Here's the DDD, Defective Dependent and Delinquent Schedule for 1880. There's enumeration maps for 1940s, non-pop schedules from 1850 to 1880. So you need to be specific and make sure you're not clicking one of the specials and you want the actual census itself. Let's go up to search and we're going to take a look at the birth, marriage, and death records. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of birth, marriage, or birth and death records are records of the state. And a lot of times they're locked. There are occasions where they're not. There's certain things that are available, like the California Death Index. I believe Texas has a death index that are on here. In most cases, when you're going to this, you're going to be looking for marriage records. You're going to be looking for church records. And then there are select things here in the US and then foreign materials for Europe. One of the big things you'll see mentioned under the featured data collections here is the US Social Security Death Index. Note that runs from 1935 to 2014. We regularly get questions about people who have died after 1968 in Missouri. 1968 is the most recent vital records that are available, or death records that are available online through the state archives. So the Social Security Death Index is often a place we'll turn for people who've died since that to kind of figure out when they died, where they lived, find obituaries, find their death certificate. There is also a applications database that goes along with that. We'll look at that in a minute. But that's another tool that we use for people who were born before Social Security. To receive Social Security, they had to apply for it, and there's an application file. We've got this birth, baptism, and christening category. I'm going to go ahead and click into that. And you'll see that the information that they provide, or that you can search by, gets much narrower here. We don't have our lived-in category that we had in the census. That's because we're only looking for that birth record. If we go into the card catalog and see, there's over 2,000, almost 3,000 items under this birth, marriages, and deaths category. And you can see there's a lot of different things here, but most of them are, it looks like European sources, and many of them look like they're, here we have Welsh sources that have been loaded. But you'll find other things in here as well. Here's Oklahoma marriage records. New Mexico marriage records. We've got tombstone inscriptions. In most cases, what you're looking at here will not be actual records themselves, not actual images themselves, but will be indexes. That's the most common thing that you'll find in this category. Let's take a look at the military section. Now, Ancestry probably isn't your first stop for military records. In most cases, you're going to want to go to the Fold 3 database, which is an Ancestry product. But there are a lot of things that are searchable here, and they have cross-linked a lot of things. So be aware when you search in Ancestry and you search these military records, you might be hitting on records that are over actually in the Fold 3 database because they've been cross-linked. Ancestry has also cross-linked things with Family Search. And we do teach 2 classes on the Family Search database. Both have been recorded and are on our website. I will also say that we have also recorded a class on military records in the Fold 3 database, also available on our website. So that can get you a lot of good information. If we take a look at the card catalog here, there are over 645 different record sets in this Ancestry database for military records. You can go over to the left-hand side of the card catalog and narrow this down by location, by the dates, or by the type of collection that you're looking for. So for example, if you were looking for enlistment records, you could narrow it down by draft, enlistment, and service in the US and limit it by Missouri. And unfortunately, Ancestry is moving a little slow this evening. Now, there are a lot of unique records in here. Sometimes one state has them and others don't. So you kind of got to get in there and play and see what's available. For Missouri, a lot of it will be national records. In this case, national enlistments, muster rolls for the Navy, Veterans Administration. Here's U.S. military registers, Spanish and American War volunteers. So it's kind of all over the place. If we were looking in Kansas, for example, or New York is another example, I know that the Grand Army of the Republic records have been uploaded. Yeah, there's the post reports for the U.S. Grand Army of the Republic. So it just kind of depends on what state, what archives Ancestry has been able to get into, what records will be available through the database. I know New York and Kansas GAR records are there. Grand Army of the Republic, of course, is the organization that formed after the Civil War that all Union servicemen could join and be members of. It was the largest fraternal organization in the country during the late 19th and early 20th century. And their post reports are fantastic records. If your ancestor lived in Kansas or New York, they're here. And those records exist in other places for different states. Let's go up and hit that last category, immigration and travel. Now, the two main things that you're going to probably be looking for here are going to be your passenger lists and your naturalization records. Now, we do offer a class on immigration records, passenger and naturalizations being the focus. And I do believe we have an upcoming program for that coming up in January. And of course, once that's been done on Zoom, we'll record it and make it available on our website. When anybody ever calls for passenger lists, this is where we usually go to do that research. Lots of different good stuff here for passenger lists. You've got your Atlantic and Gulf ports. You got the Port of Baltimore, Port of Philadelphia, of course, New York, Ellis Island and Castle Garden. New Orleans is a big one for us here in St. Louis. So there's all of that. There's good naturalization records for, and forgive me, I can't remember what years are covered. So let's see here. 1840 to 1957, but it is in select states. So those are available there. Naturalizations get kind of iffy because before 1907, they could be recorded in any court. Records aren't particularly forthcoming with evidence. After 1906, from 1907 on, they have to be recorded in a particular court, and they say a lot more. They usually say village of origin or place of origin or where they're coming from. They're usually better records after 1907. For your passenger lists, what I highly recommend you do, you can either narrow by category, 2 passenger lists and do your search, or more effectively go to the card catalog. If you know they came from New York or came through New York, or if you know they came in through New Orleans, to specifically search for those records independently. So if we came in and we did our narrowing down to US, we narrow it down to Louisiana, no, that's not the right one. Let's see. slave manifests. There it is, New Orleans passenger list, 1813 to 1963. And of course, most of the German and Irish immigrants in the St. Louis area and in Missouri and Illinois, and even many of the 19th century English immigrants, they came to the port of New Orleans. So more than likely, this is where you're going to look. Now, after 1865, 1870, you're probably more than likely going to be looking in Baltimore, New York, and after 1890, you're probably looking in New York. So that just depends on what time frame they came over where you're going to look. Note, the people are cargo. The ship captains who fill out the manifests that are recording these passenger lists don't necessarily care who their cargo are. They don't spell the names correctly, or they shorthand them, or you just never know what you're going to find. If you know somebody came over with somebody else and you can't find your person, look for the other person. If they came over with friends, look for those people, because you just don't know how they're going to be spelled. If they even got the name even remotely correct. And, if you've got common names, if it's Mary Kelly, you're not going to find your Mary Kelly in the passenger lists. Common thing we see, people want the passenger list because they think it's going to say the village of origin of the individual. In most cases, all it tells us is their name, the ship they were on, the date they departed, the date they arrived, and where they departed, which is a port, not their village of origin. Moving on to the card catalog. Now you'll note that there's over 10,500 collections in Ancestry. That's a lot of different stuff to look through, and that number is growing all the time. I'm going to close my video here. So it's not going to let me do it. I wanted to close the video so I could show you this drop down here. There's a sort by drop down up here in the upper right hand corner. It starts with database titles, or date updated, date added, or the record count. So the largest databases you could go to. Now, in most cases, those largest databases are going to be the census records. The cool one, though, is the date added or the date updated. We're going to look at the date added. Oh, that's what we were in. So these are the most recent databases that have been added. And you can see there's a whole range of stuff being added here. We've got a census of Rhone, censuses in Alsace in France, North Dakota pioneer files, census in Norway, Mississippi death records. I mean, it's all over the place where we're getting information being added here. Now, if we look at the most recent stuff being updated, you're going to see different things. And so keep following what's going on Ancestry, because you never know when something new might pop up that's appropriate to you, or maybe they've updated something that's appropriate to you and you need to take a look at it. I mean, how often do you think Maine war land grants are updated? Seeing that tells me that if I have Maine ancestors, I probably want to take a look and see if their land grants have been added here. So that's one cool feature of the card catalog. Now, the card catalog has a lot of the filters, as I mentioned before. One of those filters is the family trees. We get asked about that a lot. You can go into the family trees and select public member trees, and that'll take you into the search feature for the member trees. Now, what you do here is you actually search by individual. So you would need to know the individual that you're searching for, provide information. Hopefully you have a father or mother you can search for, some clue of what you're looking for. We're going to go ahead and use the same individual. He was born in Perry County, Ohio. You note it autofills for me. He was married in Westville, LaPorte County, Indiana, and his father was also Henry. And let's do a search and just see what we get. Now note, in Ancestry, when people create their trees, they have their different member tree names. You'll get different stuff here for each tree. You never know what these are going to be. And so just kind of be cautious of them. This is actually him, for sure. Somebody's tree actually has the correct people recorded here. So here's a tree in Ancestry, and this is an entry for this individual. Note that the people they've created, there's the family off here to the right, and the sources that they've linked up to in Ancestry that you can get to in all the different places. And events in their life are treed out. So you could go from person to person using this record. We could go look at his wife within this particular tree. Now this is very different than family search. In family search, it's all one big tree that's all linked together. Here in Ancestry, it's hundreds and thousands of individual little trees that are all floating out there. They're all user created. You can't trust them. So you need to take a look at them and evaluate. I think this individual is actually linked up to my Ancestry tree. So I think they actually have the correct information here. Okay. So some other key things about Ancestry I want to talk about is getting into the records and printing out of the records, saving out of the records, and kind of browsing through the records. To do that, I want to go back into the search. We're going to search the census, and we're going to do our Henry S. Crumrine search one more time. We're going to put him in or Kansas, and we'll do that search. Now, as I said before, there's that weird transcription of his name. We'll go ahead and look at that one. Note somebody's come in and suggested to them that his actual name is Henry Crumrine. That does occur. People can go in and submit a name as a correction, and they'll go in and enter it, but they leave the initial transcription in place. Now, this is the transcribed record for this particular item. Note how it's all typed in. You never know if any of this is correct or not. You're going to have to look at the actual record itself. A lot of times here at H&G, when people are here in person, I see them printing out these pages. I don't recommend printing out these pages. You can do it. You can do a view printer-friendly version if you wanted to and print that out, but I don't recommend doing that. What I recommend individuals do is they actually go to the record. So we're going to go in and view the actual record. So here's an actual census page in Ancestry, 1900 United States Federal Census. And what Ancestry usually does is they highlight them, but they're not going to be kind to us tonight and show us what they actually do in highlighting them. But here's Henry Crumrine right here. Usually he'll be in yellow and his family will be in pink. And they'll show that across here. The nice thing about going and looking at the actual records themselves and not the transcript is I get to see all the names of people around them. This is their cluster or their fan club, their family, their associates, their neighbors. And so I always like to see that. And this is true of censuses, passenger lists. I want to see all the people around. I don't want to just see some transcribed record. I want to see the actual record itself. You can see odd things here that you won't see on the transcript itself. You'll see how they provide all the good information here. He was born in Pennsylvania and his parents were from Pennsylvania, except for he wasn't born in Pennsylvania. He was actually born in Ohio. It tells us their profession. He's a farmer. And you get all the kids and all of that good stuff. I really need to be able to close this window. Can I? There we go. Okay. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the save option. And what we usually recommend you do is you save these to the computer. And what that'll do is that'll actually save it down, download it to your computers, to your downloads folder, and you can go in and click in, open that file, and I may have to share that file. Let's see. And you can pop it open. There it is, and you can see shared for you there, where you can access that file. Okay, we're going to share back to the internet. Here we are. Some things to note. Some things I love about Ancestry is it provides us with a little tree up here for the records. So this is in District 54 of Eudora Township in Douglas County in Kansas. And you can click in and select different townships. You could go in and select different districts. There's only one here for this area. It's a rural area. But I could go in and search the different townships. So if I'm not finding something in the township that I'm in, or I want to see people in neighboring townships, I can do that. And a lot of times you'll find, particularly in an urban area like St. Louis, you can jump from township to township and scroll pages. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll get to the actual census document, and then I'll start scrolling the different enumeration districts here in St. Louis. What I find sometimes people will come in and they say, well, I can find my ancestor in 1930, and I can't find them in 1920, and I can find them in 1910, and they're in the same place. So I don't understand why they're not in 1920. So I'll go to one of their neighbors in 1920, getting that name from 1910 or 1930, and I'll go page by page, and I'll find that they missed an address. And then I'll go and check that address and find out that it's a corner address. And I'll note on 1910 and 1930 that they own a store. More than likely, the census taker just walked right by the storefront because they were living upstairs above it, and they never got the data for them. So that's something to pay attention to as you're searching in it. You can browse through it. You don't have to just do that search feature to get here just to find things. You can go through and go page by page using these left and right arrows and search through it. Now this back arrow should take us back to our original search and get you back to that. Now you'll note here we've got our filters for the census, so I could just go in and filter for 1950. Obviously he wasn't alive at that point, so anybody that's here is not what I was looking for. But note that it'll make mistakes. Here he is, recorded 1944 enumeration date. I wonder what this is. Huh. Not him. Okay. Let's see, other things to pay attention to. Ancestry on its homepage has a learning center. They provide a lot of great information for you in the form of research aids. Definitely worth taking a look at if you're struggling with Ancestry. If our classes don't provide you with the information you're looking for, this is a great place to go. Lots of great details. You're getting started, information on the census and many different census tips, different beyond basic things like church records and military records, cemetery research. Here's your immigration, how to on military, and then ethnic research as well. And not just African-American. Here we have Swedish, German, Canadian, and guides on Native American research as well. So that's a cool place to get some more information. It's the Learning Center. There are message boards on Ancestry. You can go in and see them, but on the library edition, we can't write messages and communicate through it. You would need to either get a personal account by doing DNA or by purchasing the home version of Ancestry. Finally, they do provide some charts and forms. We have our own chart on our website. So if you're looking for a free chart, you can always check out our chart, but they provide them as well. They provide family group sheets. We also have those on our website if you'd like to get them through us, and then different other forms and census forms. So you can download the different census forms, and that's very cool because you can see what the categories are from census to census. That gets particularly useful when you get early on, 1790 to 1840, where the census pages don't always have the categories at the top. Okay, so that's just a basic overview of Ancestry. I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor for questions.
So Jake, earlier, Angie asked, Jake mentioned at the beginning that he put a link in the chat. However, I do not see anything in the chat window. I'm not sure what you might have mentioned that you were going to put.
I think it was probably you, Mike.
Oh, it was me?
Yeah, I think it's that website link. Just go ahead and throw that back up there for them. So.
Oh, the link to our website?
Well, yeah, and it's at the bottom of the screen right now.
Yeah.
So it's there for them right now if they need to write it down.
That's true. Oh, there we go. Angie found it.
Excellent.
Do you see the question in the chat? The question is, are there entry ports for Canadians that you could recommend coming to the U.S.?
That's a good question. That is certainly not in my area of expertise. Mike, do you have any suggestions there? I know that there's passports and things on Ancestry. I don't know the ports of entry.
Sure. I mean, there were lots of border crossings.
Right.
There weren't really St. Albans. We have the record of St. Albans, which is a crossing in Vermont, but that's the only ones that I know of.
Okay.
Most of them, from what I know, from what I understand, most individuals crossed without a record of their entry or exit for that matter. And the St. Albans records don't begin until about 1897, if I remember correctly. Of course, if they took a passenger ship from a port in Canada and then took it to a port in the United States, it would just be whatever port they entered into.
Right. Let's look here. I'm in the card catalog. I want to see what options are here. Obviously, it's moving slow. So, U.S. bound vessels arriving in Canada. Canada St. Louis Steamboat Company passenger lists. We got Canadian. So this Canada arriving passenger lists.
Those are arrivals into
ports.
Canada from usually European ports.
So let's try U.S. and keyword. I'll see. I don't know.
The St. Albans, Vermont records, which we have on microfilm, those are the only ones that I'm even aware of. There may be some West Coast ones that I didn't know existed.
Yeah, it's not something I'm familiar with enough to answer. Detroit, Michigan, U.S. border crossings and passenger and crew lists. Michigan, U.S. arriving passenger and crew lists. And then this one says Eastern U.S. ports. So there's 3 right there that are possible. Michigan, U.S. arriving passenger and crew lists. Detroit, U.S. border crossings and passenger. And then we've got a Canada one that includes some U.S. ports. So I don't know what will be in there, but more than likely that would be where you would find something like that. Do we have some other questions? I wonder if that's what this is. There's a Wisconsin, 1922 to 1963, probably not early enough for most people, but that's there. Here's a Chicago, even more recent. And Maine, I wonder.
Well, not to promote a different website, but Family Search does have a database of U.S. Canada border crossings.
Yeah.
The date ranges are 1895 to 1956. That's probably where I would look.
Yeah, I think that's probably your best bet to find it is Family Search.
All right.
Do we have any other questions?
I don't see any, Jake.
Oh, I just saw something pop up in the Q&A.
Oh, well, there's two open. Yeah, two open in Q&A. Angie, well, I guess we should ask, are those family history charts?
Yeah, okay. Give me just a moment and we'll get you there and show you that. So on our website, under research, genealogical forms, and there is a 4-generation chart and a family group sheet for you. So there's our 4-generation chart right there, and our family group sheet right there. And you can just download those and print those right off our website. In normal times, you come in and pick them up. We'd have them piled up for you out on the floor. But right now, they're just available there. And I brought up before our different programs on our website. If you'll take a look here under virtual classroom, you'll see all of our recorded programs, all of the classes that we give. There's the ancestral military veterans, the different family search classes. I think the census was up higher here. There it is, U.S. Census records. And then we have a lot of specialized classes, African-American research, German research. Then we're adding them constantly. So keep an eye out there in our virtual classroom for that stuff. Any other questions?
Just handling a couple from Angie.
Okay.
Oh, we're getting quite a few more. Okay.
Okay, okay. I'll answer the Lynn question.
Okay.
Um, the reason Ancestry isn't always available from home remotely has to do with licensing. Because Ancestry sells their products direct to individuals, they limit the access that libraries can provide to on-site only access. Because of the pandemic and because we weren't able to provide that service here on site, Ancestry did lift that restriction at least through the end of the year, and I think they've extended it past that now, so that you can access it remotely during this time. But I'm sure when we go back to a normal world, whenever that occurs, they will pull back on those restriction limits because they do want to sell their product, and we understand that. I saw Angie was asking about how to document adoptions. I would create separate trees. I do the same thing. If a husband or wife ends up remarrying, in one case I have a male ancestor who married 4 times, so I have 4 separate trees for each of his wives, 3 of which had children. So you can end up with multiple trees branching out because of things like that. Just create a whole new tree for those individuals, or record for those individuals. Don't try to cram them all in together. Any other questions? Looks like we're done, Mike.
Okay, I'll get us out of here. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the class and found the information to be useful. If you have further questions or comments, please feel free to contact History and Genealogy at 314-994-3300 or by email at genealogy@slcl.org. If you are watching this live, I remind you that this class has been recorded and will be made available on the library's website at www.slcl.org/genealogy and the library's YouTube channel. If you are watching this on YouTube, we invite you to like this video and post a comment below. This ends the Zoom session. Have a good evening.